Hello, everybody. Welcome to an all new episode of Beyond the Barricade. We are live. It is 7:08 right now, and I am going to bring my next guest on from Chosen Pro Wrestling, Miles Penn. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. How's it going?
It's going good. It's going good, man. It's
hmm
hot today. I think
I like it.
spent too much time out in the sun, but let's start the show. All right.
All right. Looking forward to it.
All right. Let's talk about Chosen Pro Wrestling. Who's your opponent this Saturday?
My opponent this Saturday is Justin Bon Jovi.
Justin Bonjo. All right, tell me about how this all started with Justin.
Um, so I don't know much about Justin, I will say. What I do know about him is the reason that he got into this is because his entire life people treat him as just, some background character, like just some background noise. And so he got into pro wrestling to be like that main guy, you know.
Right.
Um, and so we were both at the tryout and everything. We were both chosen, not necessarily part of the chosen 10, the chosen few, but part of the roster nonetheless. And then that match was put together, and it's a match I'm very excited for.
All right, awesome, awesome. Let's start out with how you fell in love with professional wrestling. Let's go with this.
Ooh, all right. So picture this, right? I am just 10 years old, just laying down on my couch,
Mhm.
just watching TV. The day is December 23rd, 2013. So just almost 10 years ago. I turn, I'm just flipping through the channels. I've never watched wrestling before. And then I just see Monday Night Raw, right? And it's during the main event. And that main event is The Shield versus John Cena,
Mhm.
CM Punk, and Big E Langston. And seeing John Cena, I didn't really know just much about pro wrestling. It was, I've heard of the name John Cena, but I was just like, oh wow, like he still does this, like, and I just fell in love. Like from there, I thought it was so cool. Just the drama, the tension of just like, getting the hot tag. I was just like, oh my God, like tag, you're so close.
Gotcha.
And so that Christmas I got like a Nook, like one of the, it was like a Kindle, just like where you read like ebooks and stuff like that. I
Uh
didn't
huh.
use that for reading one time, but you could download apps and stuff like that. And I was only 10, so I didn't have a phone. So this was,
Uh
the
huh.
best thing I had. And
Okay.
so I had YouTube, and all I did for months and months and months was just look up wrestling matches. Just, I would see a couple different wrestlers and I would just, search up their names and see if they've had a match together, and then from
Right.
there I just started tuning in every week. And just, yeah, I thought it was the craziest thing ever. And then I thought about it. And I knew halfway throughout high school that like, yeah, this is absolutely what I want to do for the rest of my life.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. So now, tell me about where you trained to be a wrestler and who were some of your mentors during that process.
I'm excited to talk about this, of course. All right. Uh,
Awesome. Good.
so I started training when I was 17 at the Wrestle Factory in Philadelphia. It's no longer stationed in Philly. Right now it's in Bethlehem, PA.
Okay.
So I haven't been there quite as often just because I can't really make the drive. But from there, it was Mike Quackenbush, Sonny DeFarge, two very knowledgeable guys, two absolutely phenomenal teachers. That's where I did most of my training for a little while. And then I got in contact with Cheeseburger from the Worldwide Wrestling Dojo in Bristol, and
Okay.
I started going there as well.
Mhm.
He's just a little bit further than what the Wrestle Factory was for me, so he was only a half hour away, so that was an easy drive to get to. Especially so when the Wrestle Factory moved, that was my main place, and that's the place that I
Right.
train at for the most part now. But I did get the opportunity to train under Speedball Mike Bailey for a little while because he was hosting a seminar at the dojo. And then, from there, we saw him at a few shows that we would work crew at and stuff like that. And then he would be on the card. And, he told me and, my friends that are also wrestlers, hey, I'm trying to start up a school. And it happened to, be held in Bethlehem. And that was the drive that we were absolutely, willing to make. Um, and the last place that I have trained is actually in Japan with DDT.
Really?
Yes. So I go to Temple University. I'm a college student. I'm a sophomore right now, and so last semester I studied abroad in Japan because Temple has a Japan campus.
Uh-huh.
So I started learning under Speedball, and obviously he spent so much time in Japan with DDT. I figured
Right.
I would ask him if he knows anybody, and so I texted him when I was there, and I was like, "Hey, since I'm your student, and I'm used to Japan now, because I was there for 4 months." I texted him about a month in, and he was like, "Yeah, make it to a DDT show, and I'll see if I can hook something up." So I'm
Okay.
to a DDT show. I bought
That's
my
great.
ticket and all that stuff, and I
Uh-huh.
was like, "All right, who am I talking to?" And he was like, "All right, go to Mao, see if you can find him at the merch table afterwards." And I was like, "All right." So lo and behold, after the show was over at the merch table, I caught up with him, and he didn't speak English very well, but enough to say he was like, "My coach said it's okay. He said you can train." And I was like, "Oh my god, that's
That's awesome.
insane." Yeah. So for twice a week after my classes, I would train with DDT, and that was one of just the greatest experiences I've ever had in my entire life.
Right.
Um, so Speedball for sure, Cheeseburger, Sunny Defarge, all those guys. Those are absolutely people that I would consider my mentors in this business.
Right. Okay. All right. Now, during that training, I guess before you went to Japan, you had your first
Mhm.
match.
I had had a few student shows at the Wrestle Factory, but
Okay.
it wasn't until I got back in January, or no, I got back in December, but it wasn't until January that I had my first match, January of this year, and that was at
Okay.
Captured Lightning at the Worldwide Wrestling Dojo.
Okay. Who was your opponent, and what were some of your emotions going through that match as your first
Um,
official match?
no, yeah, so my opponent was the upstanding Dylan Mesh. He's the guy that I've trained with just a couple times. I've seen him around, and he was just crowned the first ever Captured Lightning champion, and card was put together, and it was like, all right, you're gonna challenge this guy in your debut, and I was like, oh man, I can't wait. Um, because it was in a building that I've been in so many times, I felt very, just comfortable as opposed to if it was, someplace I've never been, with like a large audience. But this is more so just a smaller, taping kind of thing. And so calling the match, I was like really, really excited, a little nervous, but I knew, I went through the match. I knew it was, uh, not that difficult because he's just a very fun guy to work with. He made the process very easy, and the entire time I was in Japan, I see all my friends debuting and getting all these matches and all these bookings, all these different states, venues, and stuff like that, and I'm like, oh my god,
Right.
I love Japan, but I cannot wait to go out and do that. So I finally got that chance, when I got back, and I was like, oh my god, this is the greatest feeling in the world.
Right.
And yeah, I had a blast with that match. I'm excited to run it back one day, but that was my
Yeah,
first
that's
match.
awesome. All right. Good. Good. So you've only been wrestling since January.
Just a few months. I've been training
Wow.
just under a couple years.
Right. 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 Okay. So what were some of the things you learned in Japan?
So a lot of it I just kind of had to just kind of copy based off of what they were doing because nobody there really spoke English. There was one guy that kind of
Okay.
spoke English, and so he would like translate things, when necessary. But for the most part, it was just like I would watch them, I would be last in line so I could watch everybody do it, and then I would, um, usually with the people that I currently train with, I'm used to being like a little bit on the more athletic side, just a little
Right.
bit faster. I feel like, people always tell me to slow down, you
Uh,
know, but in Japan, all of them were just running circles around me. And I was like, oh my God, this is like
yeah. Probably
crazy hard to
overwhelming.
adjust.
Right.
So just adjusting to that, because I couldn't really I couldn't learn a whole lot about like match structure or anything like that because of the language barrier. So it
Uh,
was more of just like the mechanical aspect of wrestling.
right.
But they treated me, so kindly and with respect. And there was one person in particular, Kazusada Higuchi. He doesn't really speak any English, but whenever he saw me doing something wrong, even just like something minuscule, something that like I could have gotten away with, or just that I didn't know I was doing wrong, but it
Right.
was okay anyway. he would still take the time to pull me aside and say, hey, do this instead. This is a little bit better. He would kind of pantomime it, obviously, because, he couldn't say the words in English. But he, took a lot of time to fix up just the basics and just, the fundamentals of everything that I was doing. So I don't really have a one thing that I learned in Japan. It was more so just like adjusting to
that style.
And just calling with like a person that doesn't speak English. I thought that was really, really cool. And I cannot wait to do that for a show one day. But because we would sometimes call sequences and we would just kind of have to just kind of, walk through it, and just say the couple words that they know, like, like clothesline, leapfrog, headlock, stuff like that. Very basic things and just building from there.
Okay. How long were you out there?
4 months.
Oh, 4 months. Okay. So in the first month, that's when you communicated with them.
Yeah. So the first month I was just really trying to just get used to Japan.
Right.
Just get used to
used to the culture, right?
The language barrier, the culture, the public transportation, all that stuff. And then I finally got situated and I was like, all right, it's been just over a month since I've wrestled, and that is way too long. So I need to hit up Speedball, see if he can pull a couple strings.
Right.
And luckily he was able to. And yeah, I was there from late August, like August 20th, I believe, up until December 20th. So just at 4 months.
Okay. What was the first thing you did when you got back?
The first thing I did when I got back is go to Wawa.
Wawa.
That was the first thing I did because obviously the food in Japan, absolutely incredible. It's cheaper, it's healthier. I miss it so much every day. But they don't have a lot of hoagies out there. Like they don't have places like Wawa and stuff like that. So I told my mom just like weeks leading up to, me getting back, I was like, you're picking me up from the airport. The first thing we're doing is going to Wawa, and I'm getting the same thing that I get every single time because I haven't had the sandwich in 4 months, and that is the absolute first thing I
did. That's awesome. How did you get involved with Chosen Pro Wrestling?
That's a great question. So while I was in Japan, some of my boys went to a tryout. Just this big, wrestling tryout. And I was like, oh, that's really, really cool. I wish I could have been there. Let me know, next time there's a tryout. And so they told me one day, they were like, hey, there's going to be, this one tryout. Hit up this guy on, Facebook. This is his name, this is his profile, tell him you're interested. And then we'll all just go together. And I was like, all right, sounds cool. And then it wasn't until that we got there that I realized just like the magnitude of like what it was, how it was just like a startup company and, all that stuff. Like PJ was giving, a speech, and I have never been more inspired in my entire life.
Oh,
like,
PJ,
to be honest,
man.
Oh my
you
goodness.
Can talk, man.
Absolutely. I felt so inspired to just get in that ring and just, do what I could. So that was a good day, especially because it was very early in the morning. So hearing all that when I was like super exhausted made me feel a lot better. Like that woke me up when I got there.
All right. PJ, he's quite the guy, man.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Is this your first podcast?
Yeah, it is actually.
All right. Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, PJ. All right. Tell me about who would you want to wrestle that's in the indies right now?
Ooh.
That you haven't wrestled?
Oh, that's a great question. I could list off like, all right. So
it doesn't have to be just one. If you want to say a couple, you can say a couple.
I'll say a couple. So a dream match in general of mine would just be Speedball, right? Just, my mentor, I love, the way that he wrestles. I pull a couple things from his moveset that, I just really, really like. So just to wrestle him one day, that would be an absolute honor. I would love that. So he's, like up there on my list, but going more on like the younger side, because I'm only 19 years old, and there's just a few indie guys out there that are like that young, if not younger. And one of them is Nick Wayne. He's a guy that I've interacted with a couple times. I actually saw him in Japan because I worked crew for a GCW show because they just happened to be on tour. They just happened to be on tour while I was there.
Right.
So I bought a ticket, And then I, caught up with Brett, and I was like, hey, you guys need any help? And he was like, absolutely, you should, pull up. And then got to, do all that in Japan. So that was also really cool. That was,
That's awesome.
Such a great night. But yeah, Nick Wayne, he's only 17. He's only 17,
Wow.
but he's been doing this for so long. And then he has his whole AW contract thing. The day after his 18th birthday, I believe, is when he debuts.
On AEW?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, so I would absolutely love to wrestle him one day, and I think it's completely plausible. I'm sure it'll happen, but that's definitely a match that I would like to have. Him and Speedball are just the first two that come to mind.
Okay. All right. You name one more person, who would it be?
Ooh, one more person. Who are some big indie guys right now? This is kind of a cop out. This is a bit of a cop out, but
Okay.
because this match has happened already. Is it? Do you mind if I say him?
No, go ahead. Go.
Okay. So my legit, childhood best friend, Ethan Promise, he's the one that really continued that passion for wrestling. Like we met in 7th grade, and then we immediately clicked because of wrestling and all that stuff. And then we started training together, and then we started doing all these things together, just living the dream together.
Right.
And so we had a match on Captured Lightning once, and it was, one of the best matches I've ever had. And, I was very proud of that. Granted, I haven't had many, but that's definitely one that I was the most proud of. So I would love to run it back with him. I mean, of course we will, but just for a good, 15, 20 minutes. And I have so much confidence that we could pull that off. So he would be the other person because we have that chemistry,
Okay. Awesome. All right. What are some of your goals that you want to accomplish in wrestling?
I mean, the WWE would be, the main goal in the end. So if we're talking, all the way, just where I want to get to, that would be my goal. I don't believe that there's a whole lot of Taiwanese professional wrestlers out there. I am half Taiwanese, quarter black, quarter white. And just in general, I feel like there's not too many Asian champions, for a lot of promotions. So I feel like if I could just be the first Asian champion for certain promotions or even in big promotions, I just think that would be really cool and that would mean a lot to me.
Okay, awesome. Seems like you got your head in the game.
That's the plan.
That's good. What about some short-term goals?
Short-term goals. Let's see. I'm sitting at match 11 right now. Maybe I would love to get to. I would love to get to 50 by the end of the year. I don't know how likely that is because we're already a quarter of the way through. But 30, 40 by the end of the year. I would really like. There's some places I would like to wrestle for.
All right, let's talk about those places.
All right. So
a
couple weeks ago, my friends and I, Ethan being one of them, and Junie, together were the Lost Boys with Ryan Rise. We're a faction together, the four of us. Which we can talk about that later. But we were all working crew for a Prestige show, Prestige Wrestling, and the environment was just electric. The crowd was just on fire. They absolutely loved it. They're based on the West Coast, but they do occasionally run shows. On the East Coast, they had a show in Jersey at Asbury Park a few weeks ago. So I would absolutely love to get my foot in the door for Prestige. I would love to wrestle just in front of that crowd one day. GCW, I just I've talked about Nick Wayne. He wrestles for them. Speedball wrestles for them. Effie is another wrestler that I've gotten just created a bond with, and I would just love to wrestle just with those guys. And the last one that comes to mind, I will actually be wrestling at in a couple weeks, and I would just love to keep doing shows for them. That's LVAC, which is in Lehigh Valley. Lehigh Valley Apparel Creations, something like that, I believe. They're not a promotion, but they are like a t-shirt like printing company that runs a lot of wrestling shows. So last year, their big shows were Steel Stacks and Bash at the Brewery. So like Steel Stacks, they had like Eddie Kingston there, like Orange Cassidy. Like they pulled some names, and it was an electric show. Unfortunately, I had just left for Japan, so I couldn't. I unfortunately didn't get to be there for their biggest show of the year, but I would absolutely love to wrestle at just Steel Stacks because I've worked crew for so many of their shows, and the crowd is just so much fun. Like they're very into it. There's not just like a bunch of people on their phones, just kind of like not paying attention. Like they're all invested, and they all just like love what they're watching. And so I'm very fortunate to be wrestling there in a couple weeks. It's going to be myself and Ethan. Ethan Promise. Our tag name is Starlight 17 versus Cheeseburger and Edith Surreal. That's going to be our debut for LVAC. And so I would just love to keep doing shows for them. And I would absolutely love to be on, their big shows, their Steel Stacks, their Bash of the Breweries. So that's definitely a goal of mine.
Okay. What about the faction you just mentioned? You want to go into that?
I could talk about them all day long. Absolutely.
All right, go ahead.
All right. Where should I start? So we all started training at the factory together. Ethan, I obviously knew ever since middle school. We're the same age. He's just 3 months older than me, but we're both 19 years old. We're coming up together, and when we got to the factory a few months in, we started meeting a lot of awesome people. Excuse me, Junie Underwood and Ryan Rise are two of the people that we met, and we just clicked immediately. Like we all have just like a special dynamic of the group. And the Lost Boys originally started just as a tag team between Ethan and Junie, and then they all with Ryan while I was in Japan, and so Ryan was riding with them to a lot of shows and stuff like that, and then they started getting booked together, and so they were like, yeah, we're gonna make Ryan a Lost Boy. And because the four of us are all very close, it was just like, yeah, there's going to be one more Lost Boy. He just needs to get back from Japan. So
that was you.
That was me. And so that's how that happened. And we spent so much time together, love those guys to death. I cannot wait to, just continue going to shows with them and just wrestling with them. We've been having, a few matches on Captured Lightning, telling the story of the Lost Boys, and it's been getting kind of heated, not gonna lie, but some tensions are kind of rising.
Rising.
A little bit. Junie is the friendly neighborhood fire starter, so he's a bit of a hothead, in case you couldn't tell by that nickname. And so, I don't know, we've just been clashing on Captured Lightning a little bit, but in general, I think all of us are just in a really good position, just right now in general, but also with each other. So I cannot wait to continue that, just with all the things we're going to be doing. Just the Lost Boys brand, just developing that Lost Boys brand is something I am very excited to do. And we're in the process of doing that. And so, I'm very excited about all that.
I can't wait to see that in the future.
Can't wait to show
I'm
it
excited
off
for you.
Thank you.
All right, we got CPW Inception coming out this Saturday, April 15th. Make sure you go to TitanChampionshipWrestling.com to get your tickets. The doors open at 6 and the bell time's at 7. Is your opponent in there somewhere?
I don't believe either of us are on this particular one. We both have our own individual match graphic.
Oh, okay, all right. I don't think I saw that anywhere. Please send it to me and I'll share it. All right.
All right, I will definitely do that.
Mir Serena. Hey man, where can everybody follow you, and what upcoming appearances do you have?
You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at just Miles Penn Pro. On Twitter, the M and the P are capitalized. I don't know if that matters for Twitter. I don't use Twitter that often. You can catch me there. Yeah, probably not. Of course, there's Chosen Pro Wrestling. Inception coming up in a couple days, April 15th. There we go. That's a nice poster, by the way. I saw that and I was like, oh man, that's gorgeous.
The colors grab you.
Mm-hmm.
The colors on the poster, yeah.
Yes, sir. April 22nd. There is myself and Nathan Promise, Starlight 17 versus Cheeseburger and Edith Surreal. That's going to be at LVAC. Let's hang out. April 30th, I will be wrestling for Fight Pro in a 10-man gauntlet match. So that's I'm very excited for that. Some crazy names in that match, including Cheeseburger, Eli Isom, Ryan Mooney, and just a lot of other great guys. That's gonna be crazy. And those are the rest of my upcoming April dates.
Awesome. As for me, this Saturday, I'll be here on Long Island at Victory Pro Wrestling's Blood, Sweat, and 17-year anniversary show. Make sure you go to victoryprowrestling.com to get your tickets, featuring the return of VSK, the one and only VSK is coming back to Long Island and his home. And in June, hopefully, I mean, you talk about AEW signees, possibly signed according to the rumors, but he's supposed to come on the podcast in June. Billy Starks.
Oh my goodness! Wow, that's a big name right there.
Yeah, it's a huge name, and we booked her like 2 months ago to come in June.
Wow!
So I hope AEW doesn't stand in the way, but hey.
Hopefully not. That's another match that I would love to have. I saw her and Nick Wayne have a match, and they tore the house down. That was such a phenomenal match. So I'd love to wrestle both of them, if I'm being honest.
Dude, let us know when you do. Let us know, please. As for me, I'm also trying to apply for an ambassadorship for Prime. So, Prime, if you're watching, I'm available still. Just throwing that out there to you guys.
Oh, a lot of those going around.
A lot. Also coming up next, I'm going to have Adriana, the daughter of Darkness. She's coming on for our BPW event. She's coming on.
Is that a spider? Oh my god!
8:00. Yeah, that's the spider, the black Spider-Man.
That's cool. Yeah. I love that. I'm a big Spider-Man guy. Anybody that knows me knows that I can just go on and forever about Spider-Man.
I know a guy who is very much into Spider-Man. He's actually supposed to come on the show this weekend. We're supposed to do something with him. Jack Tomlinson. I don't know if you know Jack.
Yeah. I don't believe I do.
He's actually he's an ambassador for Prime.
Really?
Yeah, he's an official ambassador.
I can see that from all the Prime merch. Yeah.
I know. He's all set and ready to go. We love Jack.
He's got everything he needs.
Miles, thank you for coming on the show. I mean, I will definitely have you back on. You caught me at a bad night because I'm not feeling too well. I think the sun really messed me up today.
Hope you feel better. Thank you so much for having me. This was, a great time for my very first podcast. So thank you very much.
I'm so excited. I'm gonna definitely announce when I do my thank yous that this was your first one. So thank you for coming on, and we will definitely have you back on. Anytime you got something big coming on, just let us know. We'll work it out. We'll work it out.
I will let you know.
They will do a Lost Boys special. Who knows?
Oh, there's gonna be so many Lost Boys podcasts. I cannot wait for those.
Try to get them on here first.
All right, I'll try my best.
All right, just stick around for a moment. Everybody else will see you back up at 8:00. Thank you. Have a good night.